Coming up on this week's FAS TV, we visit Scotland's charity air ambulance at Perth Airport to find out about their life-saving work. And we hear one farmer's harrowing story when he sustained life-changing injuries whilst handling cattle on his farm near Newburgh in Fife. Scotland's charity air ambulance stands ready 365 days a year to respond to time-critical emergencies across mainland Scotland and our many island communities. Every day the crew respond to a wide range of emergencies, including farm accidents, road traffic accidents, sports and recreational emergencies, among many other high-priority cases. Scotland's charity air ambulance is a vital resource for Scotland's rural and island communities, providing essential medical care quickly to patients in need.
Hi, my name is John Pritchard. I'm a paramedic team leader at Ep30 here at Perth Airport. And Perth Airport's the home of Scotland's charity air ambulance, Ep30. I started out in the Royal Air Force in 1987 as a medic. Left the Air Force at Lucas, RAF Lucas, in 1995 and joined the ambulance service, where I was based in Fife for 17 years. So a semi-rural area looking after basic farming industry, a big farming industry out in Strathern, and then from there the charity evolved in 2013, where I joined as paramedic team leader then. So I've been here for nearly 10 years now. Yeah, we get called to quite a mismatch of all sorts of injuries and illnesses. So in rural side of things, so farming community, if you're thinking about cattle, you're thinking about heavy machinery, you're thinking about remote and rural, you're thinking about illness as well. So we get called to a significant amount of injuries and illness, which is part and parcel of the farming community, unfortunately. In Scotland, it's actually part and parcel of what we require, because we have such a great geographical area. We need air ambulances because the island communities and the challenges of getting patients to hospitals and definitive care. So air ambulances in Scotland have been around for a long time. So if you think about road ambulances, you've got windy roads, you've got challenges with traffic and speed limits as well. So where the aircraft brings the speed is the fact that we can do direct line flight. So therefore the west coast of Scotland, usually about 45 minutes is our sort of what we work to. If we're going to Aberdeen, we would be probably about 25 minutes. So again, it's that whole thing of being able to fly direct and get these patients to the right hospital, which is really important. Yeah, so the helicopter team is a pilot and 2 paramedics. The paramedics though are what we call technical crew members, so they're trained to a slightly elevated response to aviation, basically. So we look after a bit of planning, a bit of navigation and understanding the aeromedical challenges when we're transferring patients by air. There's a myriad of farming accidents. You can think about it, I look at it in quite specific ways. I look at heavy machinery, power takeoffs. We have cattle, which I think in the olden days we used to have a lot of people that looked after cattle, whereas now I think the cattle look at the tractor as the human and not the human inside it. So we can get quite a lot of cattle maulings as well. Falls from height as well with some of the industry. We've got big sheds which people are trying to work on. Maintenance, fatigue is a big thing that I've seen as well, where we've got single-handed farm who are working round the clock, and fatigue then brings in elements of human error as well. So there's a myriad of things that can cause these injuries. The equipment that we carry on the helicopter is pretty much standard. It's the same as we would have on the road vehicles. Obviously it's a smaller aircraft, so we carry what we call one-patient bags. So all our bags are tagged, ready to respond to any injury or illness. So we have a defibrillator monitor, which looks after all the cardiac, the physiology of the patient. So we know exactly how a patient's responding, but the heart rate, respiratory, blood pressure. We can then use that if the patient goes into cardiac arrest. If the patient's fibrillating, we can then shock and stun that heart to try and get it back to beating again. We have a lot of equipment which will have bone drills, we have pelvic binders, we have major catastrophic hemorrhage equipment as well, so we can control bleeding if we were to get to that patient.
What happens when an emergency call is made for air ambulance support?
Yeah, so a 999 call will be received by the ambulance service. The ambulance service then will look at that call, decide then the priority it's going to be given, so that's depending on the types of injury or illness. And from there then it will be processed through our specialist services desk, which looks at all our air taskings. From that then they'll decide on on which type of aircraft is going to go to it, or road response. Usually it's a pincer movement. We're trying to get a road response and an aircraft to these incidents. There's usually a high, as soon as a farming 999 call comes in, there's usually a higher index of suspicion that something could be quite challenging. So already people are heightened response to farming calls. During the day we can be sitting doing our own work, and then all of a sudden that call. So we're always at stand 2. So it's we're already at that heightened expectation of when that phone goes and that call comes for a farming injury or illness. So yeah, we're looking at planning. So we're thinking about with the pilot, deciding on what's the best route to take. Is there any problems with weather? Is there problems with the terrain that we're going to be going to? Then we're looking at how long is it going to take us to get there. Do we need to put more fuel on the aircraft? And then it's basically we're up in about 5 minutes is usually what we're trying to maintain, that we're absolutely in the air in 5 minutes and being able to feed back that time that we're going to get to the incident to our control room, so they know exactly when we're going to be there. Weather is a big challenge for us, trying to get out to these places. Scotland, unfortunately, in 1 day or in 1 hour, you can have 4 seasons running through. So weather, the fact of getting over the high ground as well, so we've got quite a lot of granite to get through. And then landing as well within the fields. It's not too bad with the fields, but slopes and areas, and obviously depending on what's inside them, cattle as well. So, and agricultural, so fields, we're thinking about what's actually been grown in that field to make sure that we don't cause any third-party injury when we're landing on.
Another major challenge for the crew is navigation when working in remote rural areas, and being able to find patients quickly in an emergency.
Yeah, we get this quite a lot actually, is where's that farmer? So that farmer knows exactly his own fields, absolutely knows where he is. But how do you relay that to a caller? So you've got a What 3 Words app, which is a really good thing to have. Farmers should really let other people know where they are and what time they're expected back, or what time they're expected to be finished, and somebody to check in with them every so often as well to make sure they're okay. Because when you're on your own, if you're incapacitated, how do you call for help? So actually having that information to a friend or another work colleague is absolutely paramount in making sure that we get to the right place. It's things like the What 3 Words, knowing where they are, again, making sure that their family, the friends or the other work colleagues know where they are, and wearing something bright as well when they're out in the field, believe it or not. Farmers and the gaming community as well, they all wear the dark greens, and that's really hard to sort of pick out sometimes. You'd think from the air you'd be able to manage to see these patients, but actually they very much just merge with the grass or the mud that they're around. So yeah, that's definitely something that's really good. And having a first aid kit as well with them is really important as well. We've found that in a number of occasions that the first thing is the first aid kit gets left for the lunch pack and actually, check your first aid kits.
So what should people do in an emergency?
So first of all, get help. Get help coming, that's the main thing, because you want to get somebody coming as quickly as possible. The next thing to do then is, are they breathing? So to check if they're breathing. If they're not breathing, we need to start some sort of CPR. If it's catastrophic hemorrhage, it's controlling that bleeding. If it's a heart attack, it's making them as comfortable as possible and relaying that information back to the control room so that we can get the best asset to you.
John was one of the paramedics on duty when Ewan Baird from Ninewells Farm in Fife sustained life-changing injuries whilst carrying out routine vaccinations on his cattle.
We were handling We were handling cows and calves at a month old, treating them for coccidiosis, and we'd been through one lot, handled them all. We're going through the second lot, and we'd dosed all the calves, and we're running the cows through the crate and handling system, and one of the cows decided it was going to try and pass me at the top of the race and pushed me against the barrier and broke my pelvis. The accident happened, the cow went back, and I managed to get myself out of the handling system. And my cousin brought me a chair, I sat down, and he immediately phoned 999 and asked for an ambulance. Sat for about 10 minutes, and then I heard the air ambulance coming. You could hear it coming. I said to my wife, that's them coming for me, and she said, no, it's not. But yeah, it just came round the corner and wheeled round about and landed in the farm, and outside in a field outside the farm. And they were just there. They were there within 15 minutes of it happening. Couldn't really ask for a better service. Well, I'm very lucky living here because the air ambulance base is just behind the hill over above these polytunnels, probably about 5 miles by air. So they were here in no time. Well, the first thing they did was made sure that I was okay. They administered drugs for pain, and that immediately relaxed me and helped the whole situation. They put me onto their trolley, an airbag sort of type trolley that they pump up and keeps you in a fixed position. And then they transferred me into the ambulance, and then brought me round to the air ambulance and put me in and took me to Dundee to 9 Miles Hospital. I would be in hospital within an hour of it happening. I was in hospital for 2 weeks, and then the first week I was in hospital, they couldn't operate on me because I was so badly broken and inflamed inside. And then after 6 days, they took me into surgery and put some screws into my pelvis, and then a bar across between the 2 screws, which held the pelvis back together. And it was another further week in hospital after that, then returned home, got home, and spent the first 2 months here recovering and not able to do very little at all, other than, getting up in the morning and getting on with a few things. When I first got home, I had a sort of Zimmer frame with wheels on it, and then I was moved on to crutches. The physio in hospital wasn't very keen to give me the Zimmer frame home with me. He was like, you need to get on these crutches and get going as soon as possible. I mean, they had me up after they did the operation. They had me up the same day, and made me walk around the bed and sit down again. But yeah, but it was a long period of coming out here on the grass. It was just absolute, anything off the flat was just absolute torture. The metalwork inside me was very tight because it's over the top of all your tendons and coming from your upper body into your legs, and yeah, it was very painful.
Cattle can be extremely unpredictable. Looking back at this freak accident, there's nothing that Ewan would have done differently to avoid the situation from happening.
Funnily enough, we just had a farm safety inspection in February of last year, 2 months before the accident had happened. So Yeah, everything had been up to scratch and was how it should be. And it was just an unfortunate accident when I didn't see an animal coming from behind. There was nothing that I could have done that would have stopped that happening. Possibly another body with us while we were handling the animals would have maybe seen the beast coming and warned me, but apart from that, there was nothing really else I could have done about it. Well, I've only recently started working with cattle again, but yeah, it's just you've got to be. Don't take any shortcuts. I'm not saying I was taking a shortcut, but I was just caught unaware when I was injured. But yeah, I know I have taken shortcuts in the past, and it's just it's not worth it because I'm 10 months down the line and still not fully recovered, but hoping to make a full recovery.
Following this life-changing accident, what advice would Ewan give to other farmers and crofters across Scotland?
To save 5 minutes or a couple of minutes, it could take you up to, you could be dead, or you could be, like me, 10 months down the line and still not fully recovered, and it's just not worth the risk. Don't cut corners, because for all the time you're going to save, it could cost you months and months of recovery time from being caught out by an animal, an unpredictable movement of an animal. It's been probably the hardest thing I've had to deal with in my lifetime. It's 6 months of real severe pain due to metalwork and stuff that's been inside me, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone, really.
This May marks the 10th anniversary of Scotland's charity air ambulance, and they rely greatly on the generosity of people, businesses and organisations who raise funds to help provide life-saving care to patients in an emergency.
My name's Ross Martin, and I'm the Corporate Partnership Manager here at Scotland's Charity Air Ambulance. So I work with many businesses of all sizes in Scotland that support the charity, be it through making donations or employee fundraising or helping us raise awareness of who we are. We're Scotland's Charity Air Ambulance, a vital life-saving charity that forms a vital part of Scotland's emergency medical response network. We have 2 air ambulance helicopters, one here in Perth and one at our base in Aberdeen. And from there, our team of paramedics take vital pre-hospital paramedic care to the scene of an incident, accident or emergency, where they treat the patient before transferring them on to the most appropriate hospital for their needs. As a charity, we rely on the generosity of the people, businesses and organisations of Scotland to fund and provide the money that we need to run our charity. In Scotland, we have many people who live and work in rural and remote locations, particularly in agriculture and farming. Quite often, if an accident or emergency happens, the people are not in an easy location for a road ambulance to get to them quickly, and that's where an air ambulance helicopter comes in handy. Our crews can fly fast and direct to the scene of an incident, and obviously save vital minutes and seconds when every minute really does count. We're very fortunate at SCAA that we have generous and dedicated supporters. Many people choose to make regular donations or play our life-saving lottery, while others tend to take on a challenge, be it a Facebook fundraising challenge, running a marathon, or taking part in a 10K, something like that. We have various fundraising events and activities taking place in communities around Scotland, and people can choose lots of different ways to support the charity. We have a calendar of events on our website that take place every year where people can choose to sign up and take part. We also have a team of volunteers and staff out in the communities across Scotland, so people can get in touch with their local representative and find out what ways they can support the charity. In the last 12 months alone, our crew have responded to almost 1,000 call-outs. The charity needs to raise £6 million a year to be able to fund our service. We're always looking for new supporters and new businesses to get involved and support what we do.
If you would like to find out more about Scotland's charity air ambulance, please visit www.scaa.org.uk. That's it for Season 2 of FAS TV. We'll be back in June with a lambing special to kickstart our next series of episodes. In the meantime, you can catch up on all the latest FAS TV episodes by subscribing to our YouTube channel and visiting our website www.fas.scot.
Hello, I'm Fiona Burnett and thanks for watching this crop update for the Farm Advisory Service. And really quite a lot has changed since the last update we did. So in January we were looking at very wet soils and potentially a later start to the 2023 season. We've had a very dry February now and the first reports of spring barley drills moving at the very end of February there. And that is early for Scotland, so soils will still be cold and some soils, the heavier ones, are still relatively wet. So just a few sort of key messages there for the spring barley. It's really key that you test seed or know its health status so that you know that you're drilling seed that will emerge. Soils can still be quite cold, below the sort of 10 degrees that we're looking for good emergence. So testing seed lets you pick a seed treatment that's appropriate to the disease risks that you identify, and it will manage things like Microdochium fusarium, which can reduce emergence and lead to seedling blights. And again, that's linked to cold, wet soils. The colder it is, the longer the seed will take to emerge and the greater the risk. In terms of our winter crops, they're still looking really well. They came through the winter looking good. But that faint fond hope that the cold spell in December would have knocked disease in its head is beginning to fade. So we have reports of yellow rust in winter wheat around Fife, again those coastal regions where it often appears first, and actually close to here at Bush and Midlothian as well. And I always think yellow rust is quite a good barometer of plant health. It's rapidly cycling, so it's usually an indicator that actually other diseases are ticking away too. And indeed, we're seeing more septoria than we've seen for a couple of seasons at this timing. In the winter barleys, again, we're getting reports of rhynchosporium and net blotch. So again, just slightly higher levels of disease than we've seen for a few seasons. And all that begins to point to probably a greater need for T0 treatments, so these treatments that are inserted before your main T1 timing. And for the winter wheats, we're looking to try and use something slightly different to what you would deploy at T1. So predominantly yellow rust is your driver of a T0 spray in winter wheat, and we'd be looking at an azole, probably with a strobilurin, and then trying to do something slightly different at the T1 timing. Same principle for the winter barley. If you can try and insert something different, a disease like rhynchosporium can be really tricky to manage if it's well established. So managing it with a T0 spray can be sensible and just gives you a bit of flexibility with what you do at the important T1 timing. So again, try and pick different chemistry. You could try something like kayak, which is a different mode of action to which you would use later. And again, maybe mix that with a strobilurin and try and, just clear up that early disease.